Welcome.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Bedtime Stories in Nick Brown's Room. My name is Sam Yonke.
I'm Nick Brown.
I'm Angelina Weltram.
Alex Yonke.
Today we are going to be talking about the concept of religion in the story Hamlet by William Shakespeare. More specifically, how does religion affect inaction and action in the play? So, for some background information, this story takes place in Denmark in a castle called Elsinore. And back in this time, religion plays a huge role in everybody's choices in life, how they view the afterlife, and all sorts of things of that nature. So basically, this story involves Hamlet, whose father was just mysteriously died, but we know that he was murdered by his brother, King Claudius, who King Claudius then married Gertrude incestuously.
Which was King Hamlet's wife.
King Hamlet's wife.
Scandalous.
Yes. So, to open the play, Hamlet is experiencing feelings of he's kind of lost. He has a lot of built-up anger towards Claudius and especially his mother, and he needs closure. So, we see a scene where Hamlet sees this ghost appear, and the ghost has the appearance of his father. So he sees the ghost, and he just feels the need to go. He's impulsively just feeling the need to go talk to him. He needs to go pursue this ghost. He needs to find out what happened with his father. He needs closure. And his friends are urging him against it. They're urging him the danger that this ghost might be a demon that's tempting him towards unforgivable sin, which would essentially damn his soul for eternity. Because in I think it was Christianity, right? If you commit like murder or suicide, especially suicide, like these are unforgivable sins, almost nearly unforgivable sins. And the ghost could lead him, like they say in the text in Act 1, Scene 4, one of his friends says, "What if it tempts you toward the flood, my lord, or the dreadful summit of the cliff?" So he's basically warning him of the dangers of this ghost might not be as trustworthy as you think, and it could be leading you towards madness. It could be leading you towards murderings, like committing murder, which we actually do see happen later in the play. So the question that could arise as we see this quote is, what does this level of like religious caution surrounding the ghost, whether or not the ghost could be a harmful demon or the ghost could be obviously trustworthy as Hamlet's father, what does this like uncertainty with religion, how does it affect Hamlet's action or inaction? Like how does it affect his methods of going about his plot for vengeance?
Well, I mean, it creates some sort of tension and ambiguity behind it because Hamlet has to take into account his beliefs, but also his fleshful desires for vengeance for his father. And it just adds to the suspense within the play and his inner turmoil that progresses throughout the play. So, as we see, as terror arises in Hamlet's life, he dives deeper into madness in this kind of two-way thing. You have to follow this, but you also have to keep this in mind. You have to try and get vengeance, listen to the ghost, and you also have to keep in mind your moral values of your religion, and it kind of just progresses the play in that way.
Kind of looking at how Sam came in and how he states how Hamlet's friends saw the ghost as a demon, I feel like with the inner turmoil that Hamlet is experiences, he's a very vulnerable victim. Like within Christianity, like demons and the devil, like they try to pull you away from God and ruin your relationship with him. And because of the situation that Hamlet's in, he's in an extremely vulnerable position. He just lost his father. His mother had betrayed him and his family by by marrying his uncle who murdered his father, and back in that day it was seen as extremely incestuous because Claudius is basically Gertrude's sister. I think that's his sister-in-law. So looking at kind of that viewpoint specifically with how Hamlet is mentally, his inner turmoil that he's facing, how the depression that he has is causing him to go away from God, and having this demon come in and take advantage of him kind of really shows how this ghost isn't really trying to save the country, and save the kingdom, but actually in reality is trying to ruin things.
Yeah, going off of what Nick said, I think that the ghost really does come to Hamlet at a very vulnerable time, and we can see this in Act 1, Scene 2, when Hamlet says, "Oh, this too solid flesh would melt, thaw and resolve itself into dew, or the everlasting had not fixed his canon gids self-slaughter." So basically, Hamlet is wishing for death. Like, he is like already going through so much with his family and that, but because of his religious beliefs, he does believe in mortal sin and how that would lead to like not goodness, like it would be bad. And I think with that, the ghost sees this, and like Nick said, is like taking the vulnerable and taking its opportunity to pull Hamlet even like further away.
It kind of.
I also think something interesting to look at is Hamlet's reaction to his friends when they're worrying about the ghost. Because when you look at what he says, they're kind of like beckoning him, like, don't go. I think it actually says they're holding on to him. But he turns to them and says, "Unhand me, gentlemen. By heavens, I'll make a ghost of him that lets me." This is in Act 1, Scene 4. So as we see, like, this is him like just disregarding what his friends are telling him, like about this ghost being potentially harmful to him,
Evil.
and it actually makes you think like this could be a way that the ghost is a demon. This could be a way that the ghost is actually affecting him already. It's driving him towards madness, and he's disregarding the logic of his friends, and he's going into a situation blindly, potentially like putting himself at risk. And this actually contrasts with his behavior the rest of the play, which we'll talk about later. Whereas in the rest of the play, he's really like inactive. He's unsure what to do. He doesn't know what. He's kind of like indecisive a lot. But right now in this moment, he's just kind of like impulsively acting, which could be a sign that the ghost is already affecting him.
I like to bring up the setting and specifically with the castle, and in the text it stated that it is on the edge of a cliff, and like it's next to the ocean. And I feel like this directly kind of represents Hamlet and the isolation that he is kind of put in within the story. And at the beginning, like, we see, yeah, he's with his friends, like he kind of has his family, but by the end of the story, it's him against everyone, and then the ghost just by his side, and it shows how the demon had successfully removed him from the people that loved him, and the people that loved him maybe, and the people that he was associated with, and it kind of pulled him away from them and really isolated himself physically and figuratively away from everyone.
So we see in this first section that religion kind of causes this two-way of thinking. You either go against what you believe, your religion, or you go against your own desires to follow Christ. And I think that all of this inner turmoil in the first section kind of creates this theme of mysteriousness and ambiguity that continues and it gets more intense as Hamlet's mind his morals begin to crumble. And I think that the more terror that arises in his own life, the more extreme these two things become. But moving on.
Wait, before you move on, I think like this first section does really represent the question between in religion, afterlife, and where this ghost really is coming from. Mm-hmm. And also it represents the question of taking justice into your own hands and doing what you said, what you want, or what you feel is right versus what's the law.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I think we could actually start. You want to talk about the to be or not to be school?
Yeah. You want to get into that?
Before we get there, I actually want to discuss specifically with the ghost. Before we get to the soliloquy, I feel like we should talk about this, but specifically the ghost's plea for revenge and how during their first interactions, the ghost really is. I remember him pressuring Hamlet to agree to his commands, and specifically, I feel like if the ghost had good intentions and he wanted the best, he wouldn't really be manipulating Hamlet to say, like, I need you to say you're gonna do this. Like,
it would be more familial, like it's a father. It would be like a father talking to a son, like, "Hey son, how's it going? Like, I'm doing it right." You know what I mean? But there's none of that familiarity.
Yep, exactly. And also in the text he states, the ghost, "I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain term to walk the night, and for the day confined to fasten fires, till the foul crimes done in my days of nature are burnt and purged away." And like Sam said, the way he talks to Hamlet, the tone that he has, the repetition of his commands, it doesn't come from a father figure and like authority. Like, it just seems like a completely different person, and it like further validates how it could be a demon.
Yeah, I agree with Nick. And like the demons, like I feel like in the back then, like we really don't know like how this, like when this spirit came, and like basically that like you were saying that if it really was his father and like his father wanted revenge, his father also loved his mom, Gertrude, so the father would never just like say to like take revenge on the uncle leaving his wife to like have to figure things out for herself.
I think something to add on to that is he actually does say, and when he's talking to Hamlet, he actually does say kind of like, leave your mother out of this. So this provides this other, like we've been talking about how this ghost is like, it looks like it's the demon,
Yeah.
but this provides this other side, like, oh, maybe it is the father. Like he says, leave my wife out of this, but that just kind of like reinforces this theme of uncertainty, which we'll see which we'll see like mirrored in Hamlet's actions later in the play, especially like when he's thinking about murdering King Claudius. Like there's that uncertainty, like you know what I mean.
So I'm talking about that. We hear in Act 3, Scene 3, Claudius is praying. He feels this guilt for his murder and remarriage, and he is praying so hard. He's trying to convince himself that he does want to be forgiven, but at the same time he's still stuck to his own fleshly desires that he cannot let go of them. And so we see in this that his repeated questioning to himself amplifies his disillusionment with himself, and even though he wants to be forgiven, you have to let go of your gains from your from whatever sin you've committed. So he needed to let go of his crown, and all of his rewards for this murder and taking of the throne, but he can't. He cannot let go of these. In his speech, he says he can't, and so there's this added complexity to the theme in this, where he wants to, but he kind of has to force himself to pray because he can't. In the end, he can't let go of these things that he's gained from his murder.
And then as this is happening, Hamlet walks in. He has his sword. At least in the play that we watched, he has his sword in his hands, and he's about to kill King Claudius, but then he stops because he's like, oh wait, King Claudius, he's praying right now, he's repenting right now. I can't give him like the solace and being able to confess to his sins and go to heaven. Like that's not the proper punishment. And actually, like the interesting thing is, in the play that we watched, Hamlet is swinging his sword and stops right before the king's neck, and that just like kind of reminds me, like it looks like something reached down and just like stopped his sword. Like religion just physically just stopped his sword from killing King Claudius. So it gives the impression that like this is a dude whose entire mindset right now is driven on revenge, and he's just like, oh, I need to avenge my father. And then when he's in the moment, he's doing it, and religion just stops him. Like religion just causes an action, and it's just kind of like showed by both the way that the play is kind of like illustrated and also, you know.
And also, like, coming from my kind of viewpoint and specifically Christianity, there's a famous Bible quote that it kind of goes along the lines of "Forgive thy brother as the Lord forgave you," and it kind of fortifies how this ghost is a demon. If, like, Hamlet truly was, I guess, from my eyes, following the Lord, he would be able to forgive Claudius what he did and repent for his sins, because that's what you're supposed to do. But him saying that I can't let him seek forgiveness, I can't let him go to heaven, he has to go to hell, it just shows how this ghost has completely, or demon, has completely corrupted him and has just changed him in horrible ways.
Yeah, and if you don't mind me adding on to that, it's very interesting that later in the next scene actually, Hamlet is condemning his own mother using Christian ideology. He uses scripture. He doesn't say this explicitly, but he references Mark 10 verse 12, and it says, if she divorces her husband and marries another, she commits adultery. That's from Mark 10 verse 12. He condemns his own mother for the remarriage, but at the same time he's also struggling with these same things of like going with what the ghost said instead of repenting and being forgiven. And it's even more interesting how he follows this. Right after, he praises his father using Roman mythology, and in scripture it says that if you worship other gods, that's a sin. So it basically, this whole act is illustrating Hamlet's moral debilitation and how he is almost falling apart because of all this turmoil that's happening in his life.
Mm-hmm. Going off of that, I feel like with this, we can definitely see how Hamlet is having an internal battle between following the ghosts in revenge or being religiously correct. And I think this has to do with the themes of inaction and action, and how, since there's this battle going on with him, within himself, of not being able to necessarily do what he wants to and take revenge because he doesn't want to face the consequences later on, causes him to just do nothing. Whereas, for example, if he were to do something, he would have to face judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, to be or not to be, that is the question. Let's get into it. Let's unpack it.
Alright.
The famous soliloquy.
Okay, so in that soliloquy, Hamlet is basically directly he's contemplating, he's basically saying, should I kill, do I kill myself or do I live? Do I live for do I live to pursue vengeance and do this, or do I just end it on out? And he actually says that people tend to live in inaction because of the fear of something in the afterlife, the fear of something. I think he says the fear of something much harsher in the afterlife.
Yeah, to interrupt, from his viewpoint right now, it's either he goes to hell or he lives in the current hell that he's in.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it's either way you look at it, there's nothing good that can come from either side. So I feel like we can also look at the quote in a separate lens, and kind of whether it is to act or enact with killing Claudius or letting him live.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think an interesting thing about the way, the to be or not to be soliloquy, and then in comparison with his kind of the ending of the play, and then especially his interaction, talking to the skull of Yorick and stuff, and seeing Yorick, and then he compares it with Alexander the Great, is in the to be or not to be soliloquy, he's oh, like your actions matter in life because of something happening in the afterlife. That the afterlife is forcing like inaction in like during life, and it just matters. Like and then with his like thing with York, he's looking at York's skull. He's looking at like the skull of Alexander the Great, saying this was a guy who has like he like
He was a jester.
he's a jester. He's
Yeah.
like he's associated with good memories, although he was a little bit of an insignificant person. Like Alexander the Great, very significant person, killed a lot of people. So these people being in the same place, it kind of just like solidifies that. It puts the idea in his mind that it doesn't really matter what you do in life, and you'll end up in the same place regardless. Like you have this person who's super significant, this person who's
Laughed at.
laughed at,
Yeah.
pretty insignificant in the same spot, and that'll actually affect his decisions in the end. To just kind of like with the fencing match, I think Horatio was telling him like don't do this, like I'll find a way to get you out of this. Like I know they're plotting against you, and he says like just let it be. Like we were talking about in class, just to be or not to be, and then like let be. So it's just the change from to be or not to be to let be, and it's him just saying like beforehand with the to be or not to be, it's like, oh, religion, like there's something in the afterlife that affects like everything we do in life, and then to be is just kind of like we'll end up in the same place.
Yeah.
And that just pushes him towards action.
I think that kind of illustrates his just the morality out the window. He's dealt with all of this death in his life. His mother, his lover Ophelia, his father.
Oh, he also loved his mother as well, but
Yeah.
we don't need to get into that.
But even before his mother died, like right after Ophelia, he kind of has given up, and he's kind of fallen into this, just into this like disregarding of his own morality that he valued so much in the beginning, his religion, and that's kind of when he lets go of that. That's kind of when we see him start acting more, and he's no longer thinking about like, oh, what are the consequences of this action. He's thinking about just the immediate physical action, not really spiritually. And this really illustrates his just morality being out the window, because at this time religion was valued so highly, but we see in Hamlet that this has totally disappeared. There's no sort of second thought at the end of this play. It's more of like he's just letting this go, and he's just totally out of the window. It's very interesting. It's very unique to see this in a play. And if you guys have anything to say about that?
Going off of what you're saying, I completely agree with like the morality thing. I think if anything, Hamlet's not going off of morals. I think he's just going off of fear of the unknown and what the afterlife like has waiting for him if he goes through with these actions and if he doesn't.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Just to wrap up, I think the major theme about all this is like just natural human tendencies. When we're faced with all of this turmoil in our lives, we tend to go away from what we believe in. Through this cognitive dissonance, we are forced to take action, and it could go against what we believe. It's natural human, and this is illustrated very highly in this, because you can see as the character Hamlet progresses throughout the play, he tends to dive more into what he doesn't want to do, or what he wouldn't do in the beginning.
And also
He
with
doesn't.
Claudius, during when he was repenting, like he wants to maintain his status and everything he's worked for, but he wants forgiveness from God, and that's the cognitive dissonance that he was experiencing.
It's the difference between our fleshful desires and what we have waiting for us in heaven.
Right.
And also, when he moves from inaction to action, it's not like he's letting go of religion. It's like he's staying with religion, and that he's just realizing that fate is gonna take effect. Like fate is gonna, like what's gonna happen is what's gonna happen.
Thank you for
Thank you.
listening to Nick's Bedtime Stories.